all you storm watchers, storm chasers, and Leanierologists out there. Welcome to another edition of Tempest Talks, where we discuss lean philosophy, principles, and tools, and how they impact our personal and professional lives. Today, we will be discussing Lean Ladies with Rebecca Peterson. By way of introduction, Rebecca, or Becca, as most people call her, is the Salt Lake City site Advanced Manufacturing Technology Lead Engineer for Northrop Grumman. It's quite a title, Becca. Her technical expertise is in dissimilar metal joining, extended reality for manufacturing, and process improvement. In her current role, she is responsible for leading the continuous improvement effort, as well as implementing innovative manufacturing technology solutions. She joined Northrop Grumman in July of 2020 and previously worked at the Ford Motor Company building the F-150, America's #1 selling vehicle. As a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, she has a passion for relentless improvement in manufacturing processes. She graduated from Brigham Young University with her bachelor's and master's in manufacturing engineering. And she, of course, loves her family and friends and Disney parks, which I do too. And who couldn't love chocolate cake? Welcome, Becca. It's so good to see you.
Thanks. It's so fun to be here, Michelle.
Hopefully I didn't miss anything, but in the introduction.
There's probably a few more words in my title, but I'm just kidding.
It was great. I mean, it's so exciting to see what you've accomplished. For those of you that don't know, I know Becca from BYU. I'm part of the Industrial Advisory Board at Brigham Young University. And I met Becca when she was leading the Women in Manufacturing effort on campus. And she single-handedly got how many women to join the program?
Shoot, I don't remember. At least 3, which was like double our number. I prefer to go off percentage.
Yeah, it pretty much doubled and tripled when Becca was there and with her team, and that's how we met. So it was a really good experience from that. I'm so excited to be talking to you today about Lean Ladies, and I am not referring to a weight loss program. I just want to clarify that. It's quite funny being a lean consultant on LinkedIn. I get tons of messages from people saying, hey, we're in the same industry, but they're in weight loss and physical therapy and stuff like that. And I'm like, those are all wonderful things. That's not what I do. So when I say Lean Ladies, what does that mean to you, Becca?
Well, I mean, it brings several different things to mind, especially being a female and being so passionate about continuous improvement. And going into any experience as yourself is different, or a unique experience for everybody. Especially as a female, there's a lot of just unconscious bias. And as I would go to any new place, especially really early on in my career, when nobody knew me, and here's some girl.
Yeah.
They didn't know what I did, didn't know why I was there. And they're just like, who's this girl that's coming to ruin my job?
Right.
Like, hey.
Hi.
So, which I mean is a challenge for anyone, right? Change is so difficult, especially if it starts using words like efficiency or reduce cost.
Yeah.
Those are very threatening words for someone in a very comfortable or very consistent role in a manufacturing environment. So
yeah, because people get worried about whether or not you're going to come in and they're going to lose their job based off of something that you see. It is a very threatening kind of position, or it can be, which kind of talks a little bit about the environment or the culture of lean. Would you say that it's easier, not only as a female, of course, but Is it easier or more difficult, or is it about the same if the organization is more advanced in their lean journey versus in the very beginning stages of their lean journey, having a lean lady show up and work with them on Kaizen events and stuff? Is there a difference, or is it about the same?
I would say most of it is very similar in that change, no matter who's implementing it, is difficult for everybody. There's a scale depending on who it is, but when, especially if a team already knows all the terms, all the tools, all the mindset journey that you would go through of, okay, this isn't someone's trying to take my job away. This is, we're all in this together. We're trying to make things better. I think that mindset, right, that culture really encourages the change and encourages the improvement, versus if it's something completely unfamiliar and everyone's really set or really trying to grasp or cling to the way that has always been done.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard no matter what.
Yeah, it's almost like pushing water uphill. It's next to impossible. You may get, a few drops up that hill, but it requires a lot of force in order to make that happen. So it's a lot of pain and a lot of hard work. It's so true. Do you think then gender plays a role in the workplace? Do you think, have you come across that in your career?
100% gender plays a role in the workplace. Gender and who we are as people plays a role in everything we do. Yeah. And it's not like going to work is one life, and then when you're not at work, it's another life. Like, it's still the same life for you. And they're going to influence each other, those experiences. And specifically to gender and gender identity, I mean, it influences how you are perceived just physically and the immediate first impressions that you would get. It influences the way you approach the world, your relationships with other people, just the way you think or feel physically, certain responsibilities that you might have. Gender 100% influences it. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, study after study after study shows that diversity is one of the key components to delivering the excellent business, right? And diversity directly affects the bottom line. Companies that appreciate diversity perform better. And if we have the diversity of thought and perspectives and approaches and conflict, it helps us to be better. It helps us to be better engineers, it helps us to be better people, to just be better.
It's so true. I could not agree more. That diversity piece, I think that's why lean kind of resonates so much with me, because lean really does encourage the individual to think outside of themselves. Because when we're thinking about a process, we're thinking about how that process functions. We're not really thinking about, who's actually running the machine. We're not really thinking about like how they view themselves in the world, if you will. We're looking at how the process is functioning. And so based off of that, different aspects come into play, because we're looking at how that process can function better. Like, it makes me think about in aerospace. I know I'm kind of going in a circle here, but in aerospace, we had this hydraulic press that was massive. And most of our workforce were male, because they're moving big sheets of titanium and all sorts of things. And just based off of body structure and ability, most of those heavier lifting positions were done by men, just because they could do it. But there were two women that really, really wanted to work this hydraulic press. And so it made us think about the process differently. How can we move this material easier so that they can work inside the machine, they can control the product placement, if you will, without injuring themselves. So not only did it benefit the two women that were working in that situation, but it also benefited all the employees working in that situation too, because before we didn't really think about it. We were like, the process is functioning the way that it should. But when we were looking at it, it was like, actually, how do we make this more ergonomic? How do we make this easier for people, tall, short, not very strong? Like, how do we make it work for them? I love that about Lean, that Lean doesn't really focus so much on our differences. It's more, how do we get the process to function in the best way for everyone? So it's like all of us are in the pot, if you will. I don't know if I explained that right.
You're good. Well, I totally agree. And it really puts the power in people, right? And the waste of unused talent, and just people are the linchpin, and that people are the catalyst for change and for enabling change and making things better. And it gives power to a person rather than the system or the tidal wave that's coming over you, and you just have to be ready for it. You're like, oh no, it puts more power into me to be able to push that water back, right? You may be pushing it uphill, but you can still push the water. I don't know, I'm trying to connect the analogies.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that's one of the reasons why it resonates so well with me, how inclusive Lean is. And I wonder if that's why more women are in continuous improvement roles. I met a lot of women in continuous improvement. Have you, through your experience?
I wouldn't say that I've met more women than men. I will say though that one of the things that you learn about in women engineering conferences or STEM conferences or any technical paper, right? It talks about why women choose to go into a certain career. And one of the many reasons is that they're able to make a difference.
Yes.
Right? And girls want to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the components of engineering or one of the facets of engineering that allows people to make a difference is Lean or continuous improvement, because although not every project might be solving a crisis for all of mankind, it can still be, right? Like, it's the day-to-day of solving the crisis that happened this morning because our tool broke, or I can make a difference to where my employees or my team can perform their job safely, or I can make a difference to where this process is just better. And it's that I've made a difference and I can enact change. So I think that's part of the reason why women gravitate towards it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before, but you're right. We want to make a positive impact on the world. I don't think any of us, male, female, cis, whatever we identify as, I don't think any of us wake up and say, I really want to damage the world today. And if we do, we probably have major problems. But I'd say the vast majority of us are not looking at the world from that perspective. We want to make a difference, a positive change.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So as you've gone about and progressed through your industry experience, and of course in your new role, what has worked well for you in terms of leading a team towards change and through the change, because it takes gumption to lead a team through change. And what hasn't worked so well? What advice would you give?
I was going to say, can we spend the whole hour talking about things that did not go well? Because I've got a lot of examples.
Amen. Amen.
I mean, I think about my very first, post-graduation, right? My first time in a full-time role. This wasn't an internship. I moved my family across the country to that scary state called Michigan. And it was real, right?
Yeah.
And think about my approach and and it wasn't specific to continuous improvement, just in general, trying to succeed in the world.
Totally.
And I did not succeed at first. And a lot of the problems were that everybody was trying to tell me how to be successful. And I was young and I was like, okay, well, I have all this training, but I've never been to this company before. You must know what's going on because you've been here. You worked here for 20 years. You must have it figured out. And it's not working yet for me.
Yeah.
Right. So I tried to do things that had worked for other people. And some things worked, right? Like, okay, I'll take my notes this way. That helped. Some of the things did not work at all, right? The way that they approached or interacted with other people, and it just really hindered my success or helped because I was failing so much so quickly. And I've learned that I have to be Becca. Like, I can't be other people.
Yes.
I have to be Becca. I can't change. I mean, I can, but I don't want to be this person. I want to be me.
Yeah.
So being authentically me as much as I possibly can have been the times when I've been the most successful. And I mean, define successful could be whatever, but if I've been able to implement a really fantastic project or improvement, or been able to deliver a product above schedule or to a better schedule and exceed expectations, or just being able to navigate relationships at work. When I've been Becca, it's been the best. When I've been not Becca, I struggle.
Yes.
Struggle a lot.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up, because I did the same thing. My first job right out of college, I wanted to put my best foot forward and really show what I could do, because I learned a lot. Like you, both of us had an undergrad and a master's, so we went through a lot of education. We worked with companies throughout our education as well. We were heavily involved in the university. We did some team teacher kind of stuff too. We were both TAs. So I really wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to do it the right way. And I did the same thing. I looked at some folks and thought, well, their management style, maybe I'll emulate that for a while. But it didn't really, I do this because it conflicted with the real me, and it didn't feel natural. It felt fake. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, I fell a lot. I also put my trust in individuals that I probably shouldn't have put trust in.
Yes.
And I learned a lot from that. And part of me is glad that happened, because now I'm wiser. When I walk into a new organization, I can clearly see, ooh, yeah, that's not somebody that I think I'm gonna put some major effort in to a relationship with. We'll have a good working relationship, but not beyond kind of thing. Same sort of situation where it's like, you're kind of finding yourself and your management style. And that's the one thing that, that I think I've learned the most. You can have amazing mentors, but you're not going to be that mentor. You've got to find what you like about that mentor and take it, but make it your own. Yeah.
And I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that's some of the good, and the challenge of it is that we can, or we need to improve, right? And we need to grow and develop. And so there are things that we need to learn and develop within ourselves. And so that also creates more challenge, because I am not the same Becca that I was 7 years ago when I went to Ford, or I'm not the same Becca that I was 3 years ago.
Exactly.
And, or this morning. I mean, one, I changed out of my pajamas, so different Becca entirely.
Right. I put makeup on.
But because we're constantly changing and evolving, we're constantly relearning who we are.
Totally.
And I mean, to a certain extent, our core characteristics, our core passions, our core beliefs will stay with us, but even some of those will change. And maybe as continuous improvement enthusiasts, we might have the approach of change is good, that's okay. So it's like, okay, I'm just getting better and better, right? So the opportunities for failure never go away. And that's not a bad thing. And I have to tell myself that, but.
Totally. Well, and one of the things, because, students constantly, because of being part of the IAB, which you are now as well, Industrial Advisory Board, sorry. We, as engineers, we tend to talk in acronyms a lot. I apologize.
Of course.
But being part of the IAB, we are constantly asked by male, female, all students, what made you successful? And one of the things that I used to tell all of the female students that would approach me and ask me, what's it like being a leader as a female? I used to always tell them, don't change who you are and don't lose your femininity. Because I don't know if you've seen it in your career, but I've seen it in mine, where women become more harsh and more aggressive, because especially in our industry, because for generations, it was predominantly masculine. Heavy machinery, dirty machine shops, like traditionally, it's been a masculine kind of industry. And especially in automotive and in aerospace, it's predominantly masculine. And I've seen a lot of women kind of change their demeanor and become more masculine in their approach. And I discovered with me, that's what felt off, because I'm not aggressive like that. I'm not going to behave that way. That doesn't come naturally to me. And I even received in one of my performance reviews very early on, I received a message essentially saying, Michelle is too bubbly. She needs to not be quite so bubbly. She needs to not laugh so much. Her laugh is distracting. And it crushed me when I received that. It crushed me.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because how do you change a laugh? Like, that's my nervous tick. I don't know how to change a nervous tick. Like, it's what I do. And I then started to think, okay, well, I guess I need to dress differently. I guess I need to behave differently. I guess I need to not laugh as much. And that's what clashed in my personality. And so that's why whenever I would talk to students, I would always tell them, just like you were saying before, be authentic to yourself. Don't let someone convince you that you need to change your behavior to match their expectation. Be your true self and don't lose your femininity, because women who are aggressive get labeled very quickly, and it's not a pretty label. You don't want to be labeled that. Have you seen that as well?
The paradox of being labeled as aggressive. Yeah, right? Because if you're too nice, you're not competent.
Yes.
And if you're competent, or in order to be perceived as competent, you have to be aggressive. But if you're aggressive, you're difficult to work with.
Yes.
So you can either be nice and people want to work with you, but they don't think you're adding value.
Right.
Or you're aggressive and people think, okay, well, she must know what she's doing, but nobody's going to work with her.
Exactly.
So you're just constantly like, well, I don't know what I'm going
to do. Exactly. So how did you counteract that?
Oh, still trying to figure that out.
But, me too.
I think from the comments, I think there's two things that we should talk about. And one is the relationship between women with other women, right? And the way that we support or break down each other. And then the other is just our own coping mechanisms to gender bias or challenges.
Amen.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things for women or minorities or anyone who would be an only in a group, right, is the visibility paradox, that you're so visible that you are visible. And so you have to either exceed expectations, right? If I'm the only woman that anybody know or anybody is going to interact with all semester in this class, and they're going to associate all women with me.
Yes, exactly.
And all women in quality 220 that will ever take this class will behave and perform exactly like me. So I have to just excel.
Yes.
Right. And that's why, so, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, it's not a stereotype, but it's what forces women, and especially women of color, to just have to put so much pressure on themselves. They don't have to, but they inherently put the pressure on themselves to perform, right? That's why we have to be number one. That's why we don't raise our hand, because everybody's going to look at us and we're the only one there. There's no one else in the classroom to be like, you got it, right?
Yeah, it's so true.
But then we get out into the next class and there's another female, or you get into a new team and there's another female, or your boss is a female, or right, you're suddenly not the only. And then it's like, well, this is a competition, because I'm used to being the best, and now this other person is my competition. And fortunately for me, I would say that in general, my experience with other women in STEM, or where I'm there's very few women, I've experienced more of a support system and more of a
brilliant.
Well, thanks to you, for sure. You're one of those women. But it's more of a, we lift each other up. And we know how sucky it is. And so we're just going to support each other. Right? I'm going to tell you that you should not trust that guy. You should not go with him. Or, hey, just so you know, like, they're judging your handwriting right now, or silly things like that.
It's so true.
So it's been more supportive. I have definitely experienced the competition, but either way, it's there.
Yeah, it's so true.
Unconsciously or consciously.
Yes, totally. Women can definitely be mean. That's something that I've come across a couple times in my career. For the most part, like yourself, I've experienced very supportive organizations, leadership, all of that. But there have been a couple times where that competition, either for a promotion or to be recognized, because I had an added element of I was single for most of my industry career up to that point, because I've only been married for a few years. There was the added element of competition of, well, we're both interested in the same guy at work. And I'm the one that's going to win him, or she's the one that's going to win him. And I didn't really care personally, like whatever. But there was that added element as well that made the competition worse. But women can be mean. Like I've had a couple really try to destroy my career and spread lies and all sorts of things about my performance or my behavior that were just flat out lies. And that's another reason why I always tell people who ask me questions about how to behave in the workplace or what's been hard, I always tell them, maintain your integrity, man, because you have no idea when your side of the street is going to be scrutinized. So if your side of the street is clean, you've got nothing to worry about. So they can tell lies, they can spread rumors, they can say all that they want to say. But if people actually reflect on you and your behavior and so forth, it will speak for itself. You don't have to defend yourself. And that's come into play a few times in my career. I don't know why it was so controversial, other than people were jockeying for position or competing with me in a competition that I didn't know was a competition, but apparently was a competition. One beautiful thing is, though, in a lean culture environment, at least that I've experienced, the more lean the organization is, the better the culture is, the more inclusive the culture is, and the more open it is. And so you can have open discussions with individuals in situations like that and be able to get to a resolution. Whereas in the other types of environments, I've seen them be a little more closed off and more secretive. In a lean environment, I feel like it's more open and people are more willing to share what their issues and problems are. But in the less lean environments, at least that I've seen, there's more fear, being led by fear, lots more confusion, people kind of holding their information close to the chest kind of behavior. I don't know if you've seen that as well in some of your change efforts.
Yeah, probably both, right? So I think a lot of, or our survival brain is really hard to turn off.
Yes, it is.
When it comes down to it, we are just trying to survive, right? And that's why we might excel, or why we might be in competition with someone, or why we might be resistant to a new Kanban system, or right? Like, nope, can't live like this, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a perceived conflict between heritage and a lean journey. Right?
Yes.
That the way that it's been is important to me and has been how we've made it to this point and how we will survive, because that's how we survived in the past.
Yeah.
And then lean coming in and saying, well, your system has all this waste, right?
Yeah.
And that may not be the actual approach that the leader might take, but that might be how it's perceived. Yeah. And so as I would agree that if a culture really has embraced a lean mindset and a relentless improvement mindset, then there's so much more accountability, and it cancels or lessens the effects of when there is a problem or there is a mistake, everyone just goes, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I
It
signed
was
my
their
paper,
fault.
right? Like,
Yeah. We used to call that
it's
the
so
roar
hard.
salute. Yeah.
Love it. But they're, rather than admitting or accepting something as, okay, this happened, how are we going to do better? How
Yeah.
are we going to prevent it from happening again? That mindset versus, hey, something happened, who's getting fired, right?
Yeah.
That's what triggers that survival brain to be like,
Yes.
nope, in order to survive, I have to have a job. If this is going to threaten my position in this job, nope. And so that accountability of, okay, I made this mistake, but that's all it was, is a mistake. And we make mistakes and we move on, and we always want to improve, and we want to have as many opportunities to fail and as many ideas to improve. That's what brings in the culture of embracing diversity. And
Yes.
you're like, okay, well, who else has any ideas? Like, this is great. And
Yeah.
the idea that the way that things have always been done is not the best way to do it tomorrow. It could be, but we're going to make sure it is, rather than just saying, well, the way it's been done is the way it's been done, and that's what we're going to do. So,
Right.
well, there's never been a female in our group before, so why bring it in now, right? But oh, here's a great other person, right? Here's another different perspective.
Exactly. Totally. Well, and it kind of teaches, to your point made earlier, it teaches different coping mechanisms. So the lean environment teaches resilience and different ways to handle failure. Whereas in a non-lean environment, it's more, whose fault is it? We've got to make sure that, you know, everybody gets retrained, or that person gets reprimanded for the mistake that they made.
Yeah.
Whereas in the lean environment, it's like, okay, what happened? Where did it break down in the process? Is there something that we need to poke-yoke or mistake proof so that this doesn't happen again? So it focuses, it narrows the focus to process versus individual. So that coping mechanism is good, because I know you mentioned before as well, you know, we're the same person in the workplace as we are at home. And I don't know why it takes us so long to figure this out, but it's usually a couple of years into our actual career where we're like, why am I being two different people? I'm the same person. Like, I should behave the same way in both places. But it takes all of us a little while to figure that out. But our coping mechanisms that we learned in childhood, guess what? They're going to rear their ugly head in the workplace too. So if we don't have good coping mechanisms for problems and issues in our personal lives, they're going to show up in our work experiences, and we may take it out on our coworkers. Yeah. That's a very wise thing to have recognized so early in one's career, because usually it takes
talk the talk, don't walk the walk.
But I would agree. Like, I think in a lean environment, the coping skills are better. And as lean people, I don't know if you've noticed this in your experience, but I feel like I kind of handle change a little bit better. So all of us go through, you know, the change model, where it's like anger, frustration, denial, you know, whatever the 5 stages of grief are, essentially. We all go through it with every change process that we go through. But I feel like as a lean professional, female or not, I go through the process a lot quicker. So I come to acceptance a little bit faster. I don't know.
I mean, I would agree. And I think it's more of a learned thing
Yeah.
than my
Yeah.
inherent nature that just like,
Yeah.
as I'm preaching this, like, change is good, this is marvelous. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to sit over there in that cubicle. I've been sitting here. Like, no.
Yeah, it's so true. We have our habits.
I like blue. I don't want to wear the green, you know.
Yeah.
But so it's more of a maybe an empathy or a learned trait of seeing, okay, this is happening. Why is it happening? Because that's what we do when we try to approach a problem, is we don't just implement change for fun. I mean, sometimes I do, but
Yeah.
right? It should be data driven. And so I try to face change with, okay, what's the data that's driving this change? And unfortunately, if there's no data, I'm like, I'm out. Nope. I'm in denial. There we are. But so it's a learning process for me for sure.
Yeah. And I think all of us have it as a learning process as well. And it may be that I'm moving faster because I've been in industry a little bit longer. Because we learned something new, like you were saying before. You're different from even the person you were yesterday. And that's what I think is so beautiful about life, is that we can start over again. And that might be another reason why lean resonates so well with me as well. It's the constant, I screwed up, I'm gonna fix it, and I'll try again tomorrow. And it's embraced. That kind of mindset is embraced. I'm not sure a lot of fellow women know that kind of opportunity exists for them in a STEM career. Do you think enough women are interested in the STEM programs, and STEM, of course, science, technology, engineering, math? Do you think they're interested at all? And what kinds of things do you think we should do to encourage other women to get involved in STEM?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of perception. And in fact, I had a former coworker say to me the other day, like, well, isn't STEM like overdone? Right? She herself wasn't in a STEM professional. She just happened to work with me. And she was like, I feel like STEM is overdone. It's like, wait, what?
Is this real life?
Okay. All right, well, I think vanilla cake is overdone, but whatever.
Yeah.
So, right, and there's this growth of STEM graduates overall, right? And so a lot of universities publish all this data about, well, our the number of women graduating in STEM is increasing every year. And you're like, okay, and it's that, and once you work in a lot of data, you know that you can make the data say whatever you want to, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
oh, if I just invert the curve, it looks like I'm improving, but I just flip the scale.
Exactly.
Like, I just like shorten my window. Anyways, still,
Yeah.
But the reality is even though the overall number might be improving, the percentage, right, the ratio of women to men in STEM is not improving. It's more or less stagnant.
Yeah.
And do I feel like we need more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
One, it's lonely. It's lonely to me, right? It's lonely to feel that you're not normal. And it's challenging to overcome that. And to have another person who feels some of the experiences that you've experienced is really empowering. And that C1B1, where I saw that my plant manager was a female. She was a female plant manager of a 100-year-old plant, the plant for Ford Motor Company, the company that invented mass production. Like, this is manufacturing. And I was like, she can do it, I can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And so it's not only the morale and support that we need each other, but also engineers create the physical and digital world around us.
Yes.
And if you don't like the way things are, you need to tell an engineer. And
Yes.
why not tell yourself? Right?
Yeah.
And like, the weirdest thing to me is that the first patent for a tampon was filed by a man. Like, what?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. And so if I want products and just experiences designed for me,
Yeah.
then I better have a say. And in order to have a say, I got to be an engineer. And so,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, if we want products for women, we got to have women's perspective.
Totally. And it adds to that diversity too. It's a beautiful thing to sit in a room and to hear all the different perspectives from all across the globe. Adrian and I, my husband is British, and we had this experience the other day with everything horrible that's going on in Europe at the moment. We discovered something different. So I woke up the morning after the invasion occurred, and I woke up immediately thinking, how are we going to take care of all of these refugees? I'm worried about the refugees. That's what I was worried about. Yeah. When Adrian woke up, his first thought was, we're very close to a military base. It takes this many miles for a certain type of missile to, spread destruction. And how quickly can they reach our shore was his thought process. And I stopped him and I asked him, where did you come up with that? Like, that was the furthest thing from my mind. And I realized he grew up in Europe. So when he was young, he was taught this is how quickly it would take for an enemy to reach our shore, because they were in constant battle, right? So his thought process was totally different. And why I bring that up is we, of course, want to take care of everyone in the world. But the reason why I bring it up is those differences in perspective bring about good discussion in an environment when you're making major decisions. If everybody's thinking the same way, we make the wrong choice most often. We need that diversity to challenge the way that we think, to challenge the way that we create things for people or support people. We get to better decision making when there is that diversity of thought. It was just so fascinating to me that we had that experience where it was like, wow. It made me realize actually like how fortunate we are in the United States, that we haven't really seen war on our soil since the 1800s. Right. It really opened my eyes to a different perspective for sure. Yeah. But yes, that's why I was hoping we would talk about the STEM stuff, because sometimes I wonder if these young girls in elementary school and stuff, when they show interest in designing stuff or when they're taking stuff apart, we can influence them and support them in, why do you like to take stuff apart? Why do you want to see how it works? Maybe you should think about, joining sciences or looking at the sciences at a young age. Yeah, because when I was going through the program, I was one of 7 women in the undergrad and one of 3 in the master's. And I don't know what it was like for you.
When I was a senior, one of 14. As
Double.
A master's student, I was the only.
Yeah, in the master's, yeah.
For most of the program. Towards the end, another female joined, but.
Yeah, but one female joined at the end, yeah. Yeah. So it's, I mean, we can encourage each other at very young
Yeah.
ages.
Well, that's the thing is that fourth grade is the pivotal moment where girls accept that girls are not good at math. And,
Really?
right? It's
That young?
much older. It's fourth grade. And I did not enjoy taking things apart when I was little. Like I cried many a tear with my brothers taking the heads off my Barbies. Like, no.
Yeah.
Why would I take that apart? But what I did love is, the different materials that things are made out of, or knowing how something comes to be, right? Which is why I love manufacturing. But
yeah.
But I also loved math. And no one in my immediate sphere of influence told me that I couldn't be good at math because I was a woman or a girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so because I was good at math, and I continue to think I was good at math because no one told me that I wasn't.
Yeah.
Now I think about how many women say they're not good at math, and I'm like, well, is that just because someone told you you're not good at math? Because if someone tells me something enough, I believe it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So I think it's important that we continue to say, well, you can be good at math, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And doing just like you did for me, right? Being a mentor and building those relationships and wearing the pink coat and going to the science fair or the STEM fair and being like, yes, this is such a cool experiment. Right?
Lots of fun. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This has been fantastic, Becca. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we missed that you want to cover?
No, I think we've had a really great discussion on just how great it is to change the world.
And it's so true. And to be a part of it is just so exciting. There's so much opportunity for everyone. Whatever their experience, whatever their desire, there's so much opportunity in the world. And there's so much goodness in the world too. I think we forget how much goodness there is in the world. And us as females, lean ladies, we can be part of that goodness and we can share that goodness. And I think we forget that a lot. And I hope we never forget that we're part of the change in a good way.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule at Northrop. I mean, I really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll be willing to come back and chat with us again.
Yeah, please. I've had such a great time. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, we definitely will be seeing each other at the end of this month for our Industrial Advisory Board meeting. So I look forward to that as well. But until next time on Tempest Talks, thank you so much, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.